What's up, Tailgaters? A year in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer. We are now back in the Big Ten, and it continues in Piscataway, New Jersey, the birthplace of college football. As the Rutgers Scarlet Knights have continued to climb, is there another jump to be had here in 2025? My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, please do what it says right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you do not miss an upload during prediction season, especially not one of your favorite team. I am a sports media professional, got a degree on the wall to prove it, and I just started my new job in the industry. You want to see all the cool stuff I get to do, but still want to be up to date what goes on here on the YouTube channel? Well, go ahead and give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call the platform, and Instagram. You can even email me, tailgatenate29 at gmail.com. I want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. And with all of that said and done and out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Rutgers Scarlet Knights here in 2025, coached by Greg Schiano, a guy that has taken this program to heights that it hadn't seen in quite some time, at least since its Big East days. Last year, again, they're not crazy high heights, but for a team that was at the bottom of the Big Ten Conference ever since they joined the elite group of teams that are within that league. Last year, 7-5, you get to a bowl game, rousing success, and now you're looking to build off of it this upcoming season. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview where the offense is over here to the left and the defense is over here to the right. At the end of the video, we're going to dive on into the Rutgers football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and overall, this video is here to tell you what I think about the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in 2025. Yes, shirt and ties back on. Had to break out the sports tie. Let's dive on in to the Rutgers offense. But before we do that, right down below me, the returning production numbers are according to ESPN, and they do factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage. And then right below that, your recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are according to 24/7 Sports. Kirk Soraka is your offensive coordinator, and we dive on in by talking about the quarterback who is going to be returning from last season, and it is Ethan Kaliakmanis. Now, I believe, or actually not believe, I know that I have not had the best words to say about Ethan Kaliakmanis in previous videos. I fixed it recently because he had made a lot more improvement than at least I thought. But then looking at the stats and thinking back and watching tape, he got a whole lot better from his playing days at Minnesota. Something changed. He just saw a ton of improvement in production, in his form, in just his overall confidence, in his abilities. He took that next step. Rutgers may need him to take another one next season. At the very least, there is another jump that can happen, but if you get this stat line again, I don't think you're going to be too upset. 2,696 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on around 54% completion percentage. Where can the jump happen? I think it's a little crazy, but I do think a 3,000-yard season is in the cards. Does Rutgers need that? No, not at all. They probably didn't even need 2,700 yards last season out of him, maybe 2,500 at the bare minimum. It's a guy that can do it again. He just saw tremendous amounts of improvement after he really, really struggled and just didn't look like a great quarterback. While he was within the PJ Flex system. Greg Schiano takes him in. Kirk Soraka works with him. Again, a familiar offensive coordinator role there too, as Soraka was an offensive coordinator with Minnesota for a little bit. Ethan Kaliakmanis, man, just made a massive jump. Really, really happy to see that from him. Another one can happen. Do I think it's likely? Probably not. But you get a stat line like I just read off again, I don't think you're going to be complaining. Also, 251 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. You can throw that back into the mix as well. Rutgers, despite the 81% offensive returning production, does lose a massive piece from last season. That was your leading rusher, Kyle Monungai. 1,279 yards and 15 touchdowns. He is going to be gone. Now, Antoine Raymond is back, 457 yards and 8 touchdowns last season on exactly 100 carries. So that's 4.57 yards per carry. Again, did have the 8 tutties last season as well. But CJ Campbell transferring into this room may very well be that lead back. Do I think he's going to be as effective or as good as what Kyle Monangai was in this system? I don't think so, but I do think the potential is there. He was at Florida Atlantic last year and rushed for 844 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's going to be a massive part to what this running game wants to do. Antoine Raymond is going to absolutely be the exact same thing. Your lead receiver from last season. So again, I just talked about you are losing your lead rusher. Your lead receiver is gone too. Dymere Miller is going to be leaving this program. 757 yards and 4 touchdowns for him last season on a team high 59 catches. So no more Miller in the wide receiver room for the Scarlet Knights this upcoming season. He is now a Jet over in New York. However, you do get some nice returning pieces. Your number 2 and number 3 leading receivers from last season are both coming back. Had to fix a typo. So sorry to Ian Strong, not Storng, or however you would say that name if the R and O were flipped. Ian Strong does come back, 676 yards, 5 touchdowns last season. And then KJ Duff, 425 yards and a touchdown on 27 catches. No one else had more than 20. The next leading receiver in terms of catches was Kenny Fletcher at the tight end position. Wouldn't you know it, he's going to be coming back this season as well. Colin Weber's a portal piece that's going to be joining him in the tight end room. But the bigger portal piece that is coming into the pass catching unit is DT Sheffield. He is coming over from North Texas, is formerly of Washington State, last season with the Mean Green. 822 yards and 11 touchdowns. He also did carry the ball 4 times, did have a rushing touchdown last season as well. So there definitely is something that you can play with there. But in just talking about his talents as a wide receiver, it's extraordinary. And is he an upgrade from Dymere Miller overall? I think Miller was a really, really good piece. I do think DT Sheffield is better. I think he's got a higher ceiling. I think he's got a little bit more intangibles. We'll see how he fits in with this system. I don't think it's going to be that big of a transition for him. I think he's going to fit in pretty darn well here. You pair him with Strong and Duff. I really, really like what the wide receiver room has got going on in Rutgers. Okay, so now let's move forward. Already talked about the tight end room. Holland Pierce is the lone starter that leaves the offensive line from last season. So the offensive line has got a ton of experience coming back, and it can and probably should improve from where it was last season. Again, that was just due to the experience and these guys being together for quite some time. Now, 21 sacks last season is not a horrible number. It can improve. 4.4 yards per carry is honestly a pretty respectable number out of this run game from last season. It can improve, especially with some of the talent that you are going to have back there. Maybe the rushing game takes a little bit of a dip, but if it does, it's not going to be by much, not at all. It's an offensive line that definitely can at least improve in trying to protect Ethan Kaliakmanis, give him a little bit more time, and then I think you can see Kaliakmanis reach his absolute top ceiling and full potential, because I don't know if he's hit it quite yet. Yes, water is important. You have got to be able to stay hydrated. Stay hydrated. When you move on over to the defensive side of things, there are 2 co-defensive coordinators that I do need to tell you about. It is not one guy that's going to be running the defense. Rob Smith and Zach Sparber, along with the very defensive-minded coach and Greg Schiano, are co-manning this defense. Again, technically 2 co-DCs, although I think we all are pretty darn aware that Greg Schiano, being the defensive mind that he is, a really good defensive coordinator over with Ohio State most notably, is going to have some hand in the way this defense played last year. Now, there were some really good moments out of the defense from last season, but the overall chemistry felt off at points last season. How often was it? Probably not that often, but I think you can get the defense to overall mesh better and then improving your overall aggressiveness. I know that's been a common theme with a ton of teams, but all that means is sacks and turnovers. 22 sacks last season and only 13 turnovers. You can absolutely increase both of those numbers, and the aggressiveness factor will give you more game-changing plays, will give you more momentum swinging plays. Your top 4 tackling defensive linemen are all going to be gone off of the team last season. Most notably, Even though he didn't record a sack last season, Tyreen Powell, an edge rusher, so sort of a combination linebacker and defensive line player, right? He is going to be gone. Even though he didn't record a sack last season, was a very big piece to what this defense did. Keontae Hamilton was, I believe, the team's leader in sacks last year, tied for the team lead in sacks last season, I should say, with 4 of them. He's going to be gone, and then a couple other pieces do leave that room as well. However, that co-lead, the guy that did co-lead for sacks last year, and Jordan Walker, you're going to see him coming back, but the projected starters on the defensive front are all coming in through the transfer portal. Eric O'Neill and Bradley Weaver are 2 guys on the outside that enter through the portal. On the interior, Doug Blue Eli, and then Daryl, I'm going to butcher this last name, I guarantee it. Again, I'll probably butcher it. Daryl Degohi. I again apologize profusely. It's a really, really tough last name. So to Daryl, defensive line transfer for Rutgers, I apologize profusely. But he's also a guy coming in to play the interior. Again, this is projected by ourlads.com. When you take a look here, I just Jordan Walker, not going to surprise me to see him come back. Not at all. Or I say, duh, he's coming back. Not going to surprise me to see him start. You do have Keyshawn Griffin, Jordan Thompson, all guys that are going to be very, very good roles for it. Your top 2 linebackers last season, in Daryl Jabomi and Moses Walker, are 2 names that are going to be coming back. I almost said left, and then I fact checked myself. Those 2 guys are going to be coming back. They are going to be leading this linebacking unit for, again, the upcoming season. The Jabomi last year, 105 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 1 pass defended. Sorry, I got myself all scrambling here. And then Walker, 30 tackles from last season. Javomi is a absolutely phenomenal talent. Love everything that he is about there. This room is not really affected by the transfer portal in a big way. Sure, you may lose some depth pieces, but you're not really bringing any guys in. However, you are bringing in some freshmen, DJ McClary and Kamar Archie. Who knows? Maybe we see at least one of them get some playing time on the defensive end of this season. 4 top 10 tacklers, and that's not your top 10 tacklers in the defensive back room. That is 4 top 10 tacklers overall on the defense. Do leave this defensive back room with a total of 5 interceptions of production. It was a team that only had 8 of them last year, so over half of your production and forcing takeaways out of the secondary is gone from last season. However, you do get some really nice pieces coming back. Bo Masco is a massive returner slotting into that cornerback position, a really young but really good talent. Kaj Sanders is going to be coming back as well, and then just a ton of transfers. Cam Miller is coming in, Jet Elad, Jacoby Henderson, and even when you move further into the 2 deep, Chris Joins is going to be entering through the transfer portal as well. Special teams is running it back from last season. Jai Patel back to be the place kicker. Jacob Anderson back to do the punting duties. There's your special teams report, because kickers are people too. When you take a look overall at what this Rutgers Scarlet Knight team is built off of, well, first of all, I do really like this offense. I think replacing Kyle Monungai is going to be a very big ask, but getting a transfer like CJ Campbell in, I think is going to end up being a pretty big help. Callie McManus took a massive step last season, and if he plays like that again this year, if not better, Rutgers offense could still see some really solid production. Defensively, you do have to replace a couple really big pieces and a ton of good talent, especially in that secondary. However, I think you got enough pieces here to be, again, another really good side out of the Big Ten Conference, but when you take a look at this schedule, especially when you dive on into the conference slate, it could be really tough to try to find 6 wins on the schedule for Rutgers. This is the 2025 football schedule, and we'll talk about it and break it down here in just a minute. But right down below me, some odds courtesy of FanDuel. No, not me telling you to go place your money. You do whatever you want with the cash that's in your wallet. It's just some odds to give you some context to how good the odds makers think Rutgers is going to be this season. And again, they are, as of recording this video, they, as always, are subject to change. We all know it's going to be a long shot for Rutgers to either win the Big Ten with all the powerhouses in it, and that includes the national championship. But the over-under win total at 5.5, odds makers telling you this is a team that's going to teeter right on the edge of bowl eligibility, and they're going to have to get it really early in the season, because at Ohio State versus Penn State to close out the season, Highly doubt you're going to beat any of those two teams. So maybe I tipped my hand a little bit there. And even when you take a look at the beginning of the schedule, you got two teams in the Mid American Conference that, guys, I would not sleep on in the slightest bit. Ohio is going to be a real Big Ten, or not real Big Ten, a real MAC contender this season. Parker Navarro is coming back. And after C.A. Bangura, the experiment didn't work at Syracuse at the Power 4 level. He excelled during his first run with the Bobcats. So Bangura is going to be coming back. Ton of wide receiver weapons, some really good defensive pieces, just some unbelievable talent surrounding this team as an overall whole. They did really well in the transfer portal to bring Bangura back, to bring in some really talented defensive pieces. And yes, moving on into a new head coaching era, Brian Smith is that new head coach. It could be a little bit of an adjustment right out of the gate, and that's why I think Rutgers wins this game. If I were a Rutgers fan, I maybe wouldn't be too nervous about losing this game as much as I would be like, are they? Well, actually, that's kind of a lie. I think Ohio and Miami, Ohio are going to be two of the better sides out of the MAC this season. Now, I also do think Rutgers beats Miami, Ohio, and I'll dive on into the Red Hawks here in just a little bit. But as far as the Bobcats go, new team with, or I should say, newly coached team, new coach with a ton of talent. I do think the Bobcats are going to be a formidable force out of the Mid-American Conference this season. Same thing with Miami, Ohio. Even though they lost just about everybody from last season, they are one of the worst teams in the country in terms of returning production. One of the worst in the country. Taquan Finn is transferring in there. Really like him. Love what they've done in the wide receiver room, especially getting Deion Colsey in through the transfer portal. And yeah, you're going to be losing that stud linebacking duo that you had last season, especially a guy by the name of Matt Salopek. But Miami's still going to have a lot of good defensive talent, and they're a very, very well-coached team, coached by Chuck Martin. They're also going to be one of the better Mid-American sides that you'll see this season, competing for that conference title. I just don't know if it's enough to get through Rutgers. But when you're talking about those two teams out of the MAC to open up the schedule, even though they are at home, if things don't click, or if Rutgers takes it light, or the defense has a lot more to work on than we thought, I think both Ohio and Miami of Ohio can give Rutgers some fits and make the games closer than the experts would predict. A game that I don't think will be that close, though, is this one against Norfolk State. Rutgers should be able to run through the Spartans, and they should be able to pick up the win against Norfolk State. Now you move on in to conference play. This is where it's going to be tough to try to find 3 more wins. 9 conference games, you need 3 wins, and you just play a ton of tough competition. To me, though, this game right here against Iowa is the swing game. It absolutely is. You get them at home on a short week, and Iowa's a team that's got to replace a lot, and there is a lot of unknown here. Mark Gronowski is already going to be an upgrade at the quarterback position. Look at what he did at South Dakota State. That is a given. That is a known. How good's the running game going to be without Caleb Johnson? Unknown. How good is the wide receiver room going to be? Is it going to be good enough to pair up with Mark Gronowski to make this offense the best that it can be? Unknown. Iowa replacing some of their pieces defensively is a little bit more known. We know the Iowa defense going to start playing pretty darn well, but this is an Iowa team that's starting to show its age, and a system that's starting to show its age. This is the one right here that Rutgers has got to jump on top of. And you start out 4-0, you build momentum. Maybe you can even carry that into a win on the road against Minnesota. I just don't see it. And I think Mark Gronowski is the difference maker here. I have been on record saying, and I still believe it, I wouldn't say if I didn't believe it, I do not think there's enough talent around Mark Gronowski to fully be able to utilize him to the best of his ability, like what South Dakota State was able to utilize with him, surrounding him with a lot of good wide receiver pieces. Iowa just doesn't have that. They don't have the elite pass-catching weapons that you need, in my opinion, that you need for a guy like Mark Gronowski. But the defense is physically tough. Rutgers' run game is going to take a step back this season. And even though it is at home, and even though this is a coaching system that is starting to show its age, I still like what Iowa does. I still like the philosophy. I still think Kirk Ferentz is a very good coach. And I still think Iowa has enough pieces to be a really competitive side out of the Big Ten this season. This is the one that Rutgers has got to win. And I just think they fall just short. And then they're going to go on a bit of a losing skid here because of it. Now, if they beat Iowa, they could very well beat Minnesota on the road and carry that momentum. And no, this is not me saying, well, if they lose to Iowa, they're definitely losing to Minnesota. Not how it works. It's still a very winnable game for them. And Minnesota's going to be breaking in a fairly new quarterback this year. Darius Taylor did play last season, but now again, this is his role as a full-time starter. I think Minnesota's got a lot of really good pieces elsewhere surrounding this football team, especially in the backfield with Darius Taylor. Sorry, that's Darius Taylor. Drake Lindsay is the quarterback, swapping my names there. Darius Taylor, one of the better running backs in the Big Ten, if not the entire country. And then Drake Lindsay, that quarterback that had some experience last season. And I think can end up being pretty damn good. You got some good wide receiver pieces, some good defensive pieces, especially in that front. They'll give Rutgers some trouble, and Minnesota will win that game. Washington is going to be a big sleeper team in the Big Ten this year. At least they very much so have that possibility. You take a look at what they got. Demon Williams, great. I think he's going to be awesome at the quarterback position for him. Jonah Coleman, great. He's going to be one of the better running backs in college football this season. Omari Evans coming in through the transfer portal. Absolutely love that. Coming over from Penn State, really like what he was able to do over there. Pair him with Kevin Green and Denzel Boston. Really like it. Really like a lot of the defensive pieces here. And then it's on the road in Seattle. I don't think you're getting that one from the Huskies, especially on a Friday night where that thing and that stadium is going to be rocking. And yes, I know you get your bye week. I think Washington's got more talent than what Rutgers does, and Oregon definitely does. That's not something I have to explain. Dante Moore coming in, and even without Evan Stewart, Oregon beats Rutgers in every single position. Even though it's a home game, I don't think the Ducks will have too much trouble with the Scarlet Knights. The losing skid will end here. I do think you get the win on the road against Purdue, and it's mainly because, look, I like Barry Odom. I think Purdue has some solid-ish pieces. This is a culture, a program that just has a ton of building to do. It's in really rough shape, and it's not that Ryan Walters left it in rough shape. That was his first coaching job. He couldn't do enough to boost it up and try to fix it, and Purdue basically is going to be starting over. I think it's a huge struggle for them this season. Rutgers should get that win on the road against Purdue. You go on the road now you were on the road in the state of Indiana. You move one state over and go to Illinois. Guys, the Fighting Illini are a team I like a ton this college football season, and I mean a ton. Luke Altmaier silenced a lot of people, in some ways, including myself last season, to which there was a lot of doubt on how good he was going to be entering last year. Well, it proved out he was pretty darn good, and he just was unbelievable for Illinois at points last season. Run game is going to be there. Wide receiver pieces, yeah, you're losing some good weapons, but this is an Illinois team that I don't think needs their offense to be super dynamic, because I think the defense is going to be extraordinary. I think they got playmakers absolutely everywhere, bringing in some really talented transfers. And Illinois, if I were to go pick a team that is trying to make their first college football playoff appearance this year, Illinois is my front runner for that, man. I know, like, Ole Miss is in there, Miami is in there. Illinois is a team I just like that much. I really, really like it. I really like everything they've got. Love the talent. Love the way the team is building together. On the road against Illinois, going to be a tough one. You should be able to beat Maryland at home, though. Maryland's a team that, again, losing Billy Edwards, losing some sizable weapons offensively and defensively. I think it's going to be a struggle of a year for this Terp team. You get them at home, and what did I say was going to happen, right? If you wound up in this situation, you are going to need to win one of these final two games to get into the postseason, and it's just not going to happen. Ohio State in the shoe, you can just about forget it. Ohio State's going to be a really, really talented team, even with all they lose. Yes, they're replacing the running back duo of Henderson and Judkins. Yes, Will Howard is no longer there. Yes, the entire starting defensive line is going to be new. Yes, they got to replace pieces on the offensive line. Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, ton of talent all over the field. and they're going to be one of the best teams in college football this season. Penn State is repeating the Ohio State and Michigan formula to go win a national championship. Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen getting portal pieces where they need it, especially in that wide receiver room, to where you finally have some downfield threats. And the Penn State Nittany Lions are going to be a real good team this year, especially now that Jim Knowles is that defensive coordinator, taking a step up on the defensive side of the ball. The Iowa game is the hinge point for me. They beat Iowa, they get to a bowl game. They lose to Iowa, I think it's going to be pretty tough to try to find another win outside of that game that I just have them losing and falling short. It's a really tough schedule, but I believe in a lot of the talent that is here. You also got two really tough MAC schools here, guys. I could definitely, well, I don't think it's likely, could see an upset, and it wouldn't be the most shocking thing to me. I think Rutgers has got a very tough path, like the talent, but I think they just fall short of the postseason. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See all y'all in the next video. Goodbye.